Yeah, obviously a big set of results from Alibaba. Jack Ma's company, of course, that he founded. And our next guest knows Jack Ma well. In fact, he wrote the book called Alibaba, the House That Jack Ma Built. He is the chairman of BDA, based in Beijing. We'd like to bring in Duncan Clark. Duncan, always good to see you. Let's start with the results. What stood out to you? It was an impressive set of results in the third quarter, but we knew it was going to be pretty good as Alibaba has emerged pretty well coming from the lockdown in the first half of 2020. Sales up 37%, net income up 52%. So was it the impressive set of results that stood out to you, or the relative silence from the CEO, Donald Zhang, on the outlook and regulatory uncertainty with Ant?
Yeah, I think it was a mix. Obviously, the one key note was the profitability of the cloud business. So, in the same in the last few hours, we've seen the promotion of the head of cloud to the head of Amazon. It's a sign of the new reality for these companies that anything purely digital like cloud is a major boost. And Alibaba's been investing a long time in its cloud business. So I think that was notable. But you're right that obviously the core e-commerce people expected will be strong. It was perhaps stronger than that. But the regulatory cloud, let's call it, as opposed to the other cloud we talked about, it's hard to assess. It's hard to know when that will lift, if it will lift. And so the silence or the relative silence of the CEO reflects the uncertainties of the regulatory environment in China.
Now, we also got news today that Alibaba is going to restart its marketing of its $5 billion bond sale that they postponed due to all that uncertainty and when Jack Ma kind of went out of the public view. Has enough uncertainty been removed that investors, to assuage the fears that investors might have for this bond sale?
Yeah, I mean, I think the indirect questions over the future of Ant, which was addressed by Daniel, are clearly way because Alibaba's a big shareholder in that company, or a shareholder. But the fact that Jack Ma already stepped down first as CEO and then chairman, quite a few years ago, means that investors have had time to get used to a company without him as the face. The reality, though, is Jack Ma, because of public interest, remains to some degree the face of both Ant and Alibaba. But he is much less so, I think, of Alibaba. Alibaba is more of a machine that he helped build and now is maintained by others, right? So I think that investors are more sanguine about the impact there. There is still this lingering question of fines that might come as a result of any investigation into predatory behavior, and that was addressed by the CEO. They're looking into that. So it's internal corrective measures. There may be some sort of fine coming down the road, but I don't think we see anything existential for the company.
Yeah, Donald Zhang has talked about the substantial uncertainties going forward. He says they're unable to assess the business impact on the rectification of Ant. So how does this play out? I mean, there's been a lot of speculation as far as what Alibaba/Ant is going to propose or has proposed as far as a blueprint of reform to the PBOC. How do you see this playing out? Do you see a holding company that is going to be overseen by the PBOC? Do you see Alibaba perhaps on another level being forced to divest some of its purchases? It's a long question because there's so many different tentacles to this story.
Right, and I think so again, a clear line I think between Ant and Alibaba. With Ant, clearly, I think maybe the infamous speech that Jack made in Shanghai, a few months ago was an attempt to make Ant a rule maker. It's very much now a rule taker, from the regulatory authorities. So their fate will be decided, in discussions with, but really driven by the regulator. And we've already seen signs that maybe a financial holding company with more state holding, they may have to. It's very likely they'll have to get rid of some of the businesses, the loan business. The data that they collect will be more tightly regulated. So this is a different debate than what we're seeing with Alibaba, where there's been accusations of monopolistic or dominant behavior. Daniel Zhang pointed out that actually, most products, or nearly all products available on Alibaba, are available on other platforms. I think that actually opens up the question, well, actually, some more competition might be helpful to the perception of Alibaba, and that's growing. We see that with, Pinduoduo, we see it with JD, we also see it with, these streaming sites, that if you have all this traffic on, the TikToks of China, including Douyin and Kuaishou, that you actually see a real opportunity for these companies eventually to make a dent in e-commerce. It's not there yet, it's happening, but there is competition on the margin for Alibaba.
But the argument could also be made, Duncan, that a lot of these other companies, whether it's Meituan Dianping or Pinduoduo, they've benefited greatly by the investment by the duopoly, either Tencent or Alibaba.
True. I mean, but this is such as life, in technology also, you may be the builders, but then others come along. And I guess the key will there be some technology shift? We can't really predict the future, but think back. Alibaba was born in a, desktop world. It was a bit late to the mobile world. Tencent, stole a march on them with WeChat. Now, who knows? It's going to be 5G or it's going to be some IoT, automation thing that's going to come along. So all of these companies are just, constantly paranoid about, can they invest and embrace new opportunities. And Alibaba made the point that they're going to continue investing heavily in research. They will not sacrifice that for margin. And I think that reflects the reality that these companies are constantly looking over their shoulders. And so the level of competition, I think, is healthy. Consumers generally have had a pretty good run, the last 10, 15 years in China. Some of the acquisitions on Alibaba has been more on merchants. Has there been, too much dominant behavior there? That's being looked at.
Now, do you see the overarching theme on the regulatory front in 2021 to be this rectification of Ant/Alibaba, or is it going to spread into other companies as well? Because the other half of that duopoly I talked about is Tencent. But yet in state media just yesterday, when they published the great list of great entrepreneurs in the tech space in China, they mentioned Pony Ma of Tencent. They mentioned, of course, Huawei. They mentioned Lei Jun of Xiaomi. No mention of Alibaba. And today, this morning, we're getting news that ByteDance is suing Tencent for allegedly, blocking Douyin on Tencent's sites. So there's an anti-monopoly push there in the courts by other competitors. Is this going to branch out into other companies and bring in Tencent and bring in some of the other big companies?
Well, don't forget, Tencent's had its time on the naughty step a few years ago on its games business. And, so it's a bit like, if you're Australia or Canada, you find yourself in a very cold place with China. That happens domestically with individual companies. It's sort of a rotating staircase, that people sit on. I think that companies are aware that they need to up their regulatory game. There is more unpredictability. At the same time, I don't think the government wants this story to dominate through 2021. And specifically, they've been guiding media to report on how the government is pro what they call platform economy. They are pro the innovation. Of course, they need the golden eggs laid by these geese, right? They need the innovation, the growth. And they know that if they try and do this all from a state company, it's not going to work. Of course, there's some debate about, the impact on state companies like the banks pushing back on it. But I don't think we're going to see the wholesale pushing back on all of these internet companies. The government's smart in the sense that they know economic goods is what they need. These are the guys the best way to deliver it, but they are going to be policing it more carefully.